What's the most awkward, accidental physical contact you've had with the opposite gender? Story 1. I went to high school with my cousin. We were at a high school dance or event, and I spotted my cousin across the gymnasium. So I snuck up behind her, picked her up around the waist, and ran across the gym to shake things up a little bit. After I put her down, I realized she was not my cousin, and I did not know her. Story 2. I once saw a longtime friend in the hall at school. We, of course, ran into each other like in the movies for a glorious hug. One of my female classmates was terrified, standing in the middle of two 6-foot dudes running at each other. We grabbed her for the hug, but I accidentally grabbed her boob. This was the day she didn't wear a bra. Story 3. I worked in a restaurant and had a super bitchy manager. One night, she slipped on a slippery floor and would have fallen 25 metal steps, but I was able to reach out and grab her, possibly saving her life and saving her from broken bones. She thanked me and laughed. My hand squeezed her breasts and held on as if our lives depended on it. She was a lot nicer to work with after that. Story 4. I was walking through a hallway at work, where a guy and a girl I'd never met were talking. As I got closer, the guy held out his arms in a come on through motion, but instead, I hugged him. Afterward, I didn't know what to do, so I kept walking. I've never seen that guy again. Story 5. Walking through a haunted house on a field trip in high school, one of my cute classmates, who I barely knew, freaked out and jumped into my arms. I was startled but caught her and also caught a handful of boobs. Now, I was the freaked one, but she was so scared I tried to let her go, but she hung on to me like a sloth the rest of the way through. Finally, I put her down at the end, gave her a nod, and stumbled away. We talked twice for the rest of our high school careers. Story 6. I was in a wedding reception line and hugged my buddy, who had just gotten married, then hugged and kissed his new bride on the cheek and then moved on too. Apparently, the maid of honor, whom I had never met. In the rhythm of the moment, I reached to hug her too, then was about to kiss her cheek. Then I got the instinctual impulse that this was too far for a stranger, so I guessed not to look. I was performing a head fake on her. I instead bent my head and kissed her on the neck, right above her bare shoulder. Story 7. We were going down a giant water slide in the pool. I went first and she came too quickly, landing with her legs wrapped around my neck, forcing my head to go underwater. Story 8. I was 12, maybe 13, at a crush's house, crushing hard. She had a basketball hoop and asked if I had played. A devilish grin creeps onto my face. Instantly took up guard. She fakes left, runs right. She's too slow. Puts up a shot in front of me like I'm some bitch. Fuck that. I swat the ball like a recruiter. My mother and Jesus were watching. She tries holding on to the ball. Big mistake. She falls hard. I fall on top of her. Harder. She brushed my rib. Bloody knees and elbows. She doesn't talk to me until senior year and tells every girl in school. Still undefeated. Story 9. She was eating lunch with coworkers at Twin Peaks. The cute waitress gets high fives from all of us for some reason. Just as I go in for mine, someone calls her name and she turns her head, shoulders, and lowers her hand. There was no time to stop. I was already in motion. I high-fived her right in the boob in front of my boss and coworkers. The look she gave me. She knew it was an accident, but that still didn't make it any less awkward for her and for me the rest of the meal. Story 10. I was in a streetcar and spaced out, listening to music, and a woman came plopped down in the seat next to me. To my horror, my hand was resting on that seat unknowingly, and she jumped up, gave me a death stare, and moved to another open seat away from me. A few other people were giving me dirty looks. I just got off at the next stop to end my public embarrassment. Story 11. Oh, that's easy. I went to see a friend's play. That coincidentally had her getting naked on stage, which was a complete surprise to me, though I wasn't complaining. After the show, I congratulated her, hugged her, and accidentally got a handful of boobs, and neither of us said anything and acted like it didn't happen, as you do. I was mortified, though. Story 12. I was in a store, snuck up on my girlfriend's sister, and hit her with a boat paddle as petty revenge for hitting me with the broom earlier. Right on her butt. We were young and dumb. As I muttered something clever like, "How do you like them apples?" she turned around, and it turned out to be a lady in her 40s wearing the same jeans, pink shirt combo. I apologized thoroughly and explained myself, and she was okay with it only because I told her she looked like a teenager from the back in so many words. And no, my girlfriend and her sister watched it all and offered no help or confirmation of the same outfit from behind another aisle. Story 13. Saying goodbye to a friend of mine after they graduated. We went in for a hug, but our faces went the same way. and we kissed. Then I tried to do it again, and the faces went the same way that time too. We kept fumbling before getting it right and having a customary friendly hug. We was too stubborn to give up, but it only worsened. We had and would continue to have zero attraction to each other. Story 14. In high school, awkward me had a massive boner while talking to a friend. She went to give me a goodbye hug and my dick just speared her in her vagina area. Story 15. The same thing happened to my wife, but the roles were reversed. She power bombed me to the floor from, I would say, our bed is 4 feet from the ground. I knocked all the wind out of me, but it was also super funny. Trying to laugh and breathe simultaneously was more difficult than I expected. Story 16. Senior year, high school trip. Seated next to my crush on the bus. We'd already been up all night and we were on our way to destination number 2 when I fell asleep. I woke up when we got there, only to discover I'd awoken what raging 17-year-old morning would. Worse, I was wearing loose-fitting surfer shorts, so there was no concealing what was happening. Worse, she got up to get off the bus in front of me, meaning I would be standing right behind her, nearby. So there I am, standing a couple of inches behind my high school crush with a prominent erection, utterly uninhibited by any form of restrictive clothing, unignorably thwacking against her behind, trying to act casual as we file off the bus. Story 17. In my first year of wrestling, I was top in a starter position, basically doggy style, with my male team captain. On the whistle, I lost my coordination and grabbed a handful of dick and balls, eliciting a tea kettle-like sound from the poor guy. As the only female on the team, I did not live that down for the whole season. Story 18. We were doing a group photo for an intern whose last day is today. It was just the 4 people sitting by him. The office, hot, MILF spilled something on her blouse, and there was a big wet spot on the boob region of her shirt. She said, "I'll have to stand like this to hide it." She turned sideways and pushed her boob into my arm. Story 19. I was sitting on a bus by the aisle, talking to the person on the seat in front of me, and gesticulating a lot. Then a girl wearing a sundress walks by me as I move my aisle side hand upwards, catching the dress and lifting it way up. So technically, no contact with her, but still very embarrassing. And I didn't even see what happened because I was looking forward, and she was swift to pull it back down. Story 20. When I was 19, I worked at a burger joint. I was a cashier. One time, when I was handed an order from a coworker, I extended my arm without looking and grabbed it. Unfortunately, it was not a bag with fries and burgers. It was one of her boobs. I turned around and luckily, both of us just laughed. Story 21. I was at the doctor's office being examined by a cute resident about my age who was nervous about physical contact. She kept asking consent for anything involving contact, including things like taking my pulse and using a stethoscope. Then at one point, I'm sitting on the table with my hand on the corner. She leans forward to check my ear, and her crotch is resting on my hand. As in, my knuckle is entirely in her camel toe. I didn't move or say anything to avoid making things more awkward and pretended not to notice. But unfortunately, I think she was pretending not to notice too.